Nobody can see you yet. If you want to see what's on the screen, it's right behind you.
That's what people see.
That's
in
how
their
we know what
homes.
we're doing. That's what we've been looking at for a year. And of course, tonight we're without Kylie. It's her first vacation night on a Friday night. She planned 6 months ago. The first Friday she took off in 6 months is tonight. So it means that I'm rabbi and camera operator at the same time.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are thrilled this evening to welcome members of our board as the first people to be in our sanctuary on a Shabbat evening in over a year. And so we have guests with us. We'll try and show you an image of what our sanctuary looks like with people actually in the seats later in the service. But tonight, for those who are joining us from home, we encourage you to gather your candles around as you join those who are in our sanctuary, as we join with each other from your homes, connecting with each other. We light our candles, and with this moment in mind, we can share a prayer that I love, page 6 in our prayer books, that has been, perhaps we would say, unfair to share over the last year because it hasn't been entirely true. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive those who hunger for love and lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden and thanks to express and hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be for those who have entered and those who join us from home, a doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. As we join together, page 2, as we light our Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We begin our Shabbat service with the words of Hine Matov. They're found on page 10 in our prayer books. The words, again, that will take on more meaning this evening and in the weeks to come as we look forward to ways in which we can gather in what feels like new ways. The words, Hine Matov Umanaim, how nice it is for us to be able to be together, and we might add in the varied ways that we can now gather. As we look back through our week at the highs and the lows, the disappointments and the points of pride, we gather together as we begin our service with the words of Hinei Matov, followed by the words of Kabbalat Shabbat, words that ask us to welcome this week with joy. Join with us, page 10.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבר אחים גם יחד. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבר אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבר אחים גם יחד.
Page 20, Lechadodi.
לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. 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 שמור וזכור ודיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד, שמו אחד, לא שמו תפארת ולתחילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Please rise and face the entrance to our home. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה וסוחלה, תוך אמונה עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Please join me in Shalom Aleichem, page 24. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Iyu. Mi melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Ayu. Mi melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Ayu. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachi Hiyu. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chatzi Kaddish is found on the next page. Yitgadol v'kadash shemei Rabbah be'almad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich machutei v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayetecha beit Yisrael b'gala b'gala u'v'zman kariv v'yimeru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach le'alamo me'amaya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yidrama v'yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitali v'yitalal shemei dekodesh barichu Le'ela min kol bechata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiron me'ama v'yimeru Amen.
Pages 28 and 29. There's one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. One who leaves the circle of herself, sings the song of her people. There's one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And then there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, and filling our universe with song. Nevarech, let us bless, page 28, the words of the Baruch Hu as we face east.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'id HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'id.
Here we are in this moment that for those of us present in this sanctuary feels like such a change. And yet, we look back at the previous week, at the Chauvin trial, at the way in which our world changes every week with COVID and the pandemic. We've had so many hours of change, and we share this prayer so often to speak about this moment. Perhaps it speaks also about the moments to come. And perhaps the answers to its questions are not so obvious right now, as we each make our own decisions. Do we enter the sanctuary or do we not? How do we feel about the moments we're in? For this is an hour among many hours of change, and so we stand uncertain. Do we draw back or cross over? Where will our hearts turn us? For this is an hour of change within many hours, as we stand quietly here on the border of light and ask what lies before us. Will we draw back, my brothers, my sisters, or will we choose to cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim, who allows us to stand on the border of uncertainty and see how the world is changing before us. the words of Ahavat Olam that our community find within it a source of love, page 32.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Torah umitzvot Chukim umishpatim Otanu limadeta Aken Adonai Eloheinu v'shachbeinu uvkumeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei toratacha u'mitzvotecha leolam v'hid ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu Uvahim nege yomam v'layla nege yomam v'layla Ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Ohev Amo Yisrael
Shema, page 34 and 35.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malachuto Leolam Vayid. Please be seated and join me in chanting the V'ahavta on the next page. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lebavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadavarim ha'ele asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom alavavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'vletecha v'derech u'v'shochbecha u'vkumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uktavtam hamazuzo beitecha uvisharecha Leman tizkaru v'asitem ekol mitzvotai v'hiyitem kedoshim lelohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher otzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liod lachem lelohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, and that there is, in fact, a better place, a future, a promised land, and that we are on our journey winding our way to that promise through the wilderness. And what we know most of all is that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we stand in this transitional moment, as perhaps it's an extended moment over the weeks to come and months to come, how will we rejoin our hands and make this a journey that we take together in these ways that we have not done in so long? So that we can sing together in our sanctuary, in our parking lot, from our homes, the words of Michamocha, words that our people have always used to celebrate the times when we felt connected together, safe and free. Page 40, we share these words now from wherever we are, as we will continue to do in the months to come in all sorts of new ways. Please join us, page 40, Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele. Malechutecha rovanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe, Ze'elianu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele. The words of Hashkivenu.
Page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chayim, l'chayim, l'chayim.
Page 46, please rise as we join together in our Amidah, our prayer. It calls upon the strength of our ancestors and the strength we have within to share the words of our hearts. Beginning on page 46.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanorah, Elayon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem, L'Ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atagi bor leolam Adonai, mechaye hakol atarav lehoshia, morid hatal, mechakel chayim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech nofnim verofech olim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha ba'gevurot umida melech memit umechaye umatmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata lahachayot hakol baruch ata Adonai mechaye hakol.
Please be seated. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael. God, may we, your people Israel, may we be worthy in all of our deeds, in the words that we say as part of our prayer. Wherever we are, wherever we live, whether present here in the sanctuary at home, whatever place we are and we seek you, in the United States, in Europe, in Israel, in all lands, Baruch atah Adonai she'otecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. We praise you, God, whom alone we serve, with reverence. As we turn our thoughts towards the greatest source of peace, Shalom Rav, page 60 in our prayer books.
Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amecha. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav. Ki ata melech Adon, melech Adon, l'chol hashalom. Ki ata melech Adon, melech Adon, l'chol hashalom. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amecha. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'einecha livarich et amecha Yisrael v'chol et v'chol shah bishlomecha, bishlomecha. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amecha. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav. Please take a few moments for silent meditation. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru imaru amin. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We turn to page 253 now in our prayer books as we share our prayer for healing. Kathy and I talked about all the ways in which this service would be different with people here. And I realize now we didn't talk about this.
Oh, you're right.
And so, with people here with us, we can hear names once again of those who are in need of healing. And so we will share our prayer, page 253, the first verse. And then we will pause and let those who are here share names, and let you at home type names into the chat as we send these prayers to the far reaches of the world and all the places where we know we have loved ones who are in need of healing. And then we'll conclude with the second verse of Misha Berach, as we hope that those people we love do find a greater sense of strength and a wholeness in their health. Page 253, please join with us.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor Habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
If you have a name you'd like to share, you can add it to the chat or say it out loud if you're here.
Franna Reed Wasserstrom, Mark Fishman.
And Susan Clemens.
Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor Habracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with Refuah Shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. About 2 years ago, my wife, who loves to garden, found some tulip bulbs at a store and very excitedly planted them in our front yard. And for those of you who've planted bulbs before, you'll know that it's quite a waiting game. You dig deep and you plant the bulbs and you follow the instructions, and then you wait for the seasons to pass before eventually you pray, flowers will sprout up. And so as we were waiting, we heard from our neighbors and friends, oh, tulips, the deer love tulips. And so we went to Sam's, and we're grateful. Sam's sells a huge jar of cayenne pepper. And as the tulips started to sprout, we would give the cayenne pepper to our kids and say, go sprinkle the tulips. And we watched, and last year the tulips bloomed beautifully, and our neighbors commented, and we were so proud, and the deer only ate a few. About 2 weeks ago, the tulips started to sprout again, and we saw them popping their way up through the mulch. And then they just about opened 4 days ago, and it snowed. And so the kids were looking out the window all week. Will the tulips survive? Or will this snow that sat on top of them for 48 hours wipe them away entirely? And so this morning, we got our answer. At least we think. They mostly survived. I mention this because in the Torah portion this week, we have this strange phrase that comes in Leviticus 18. Leviticus 18 and 19 that we read this week, you know it best, perhaps by its name, which is the Holiness Code, but perhaps even better, by two of the most famous rules that we talk about. One that we don't like so much, which is that a man may not lie with another man, and one that we love, which is you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Both of them come in this week's Torah portion along with dozens and dozens of rules about how we are to live our lives. But if you want to know whether you've done well or not, Leviticus 18:25 says, if you violate these commandments, the land will expel you. In fact, if you read the verse literally, it says that due to your behavior, the land will vomit you out. In other words, if we want to know how we're doing, we should look at the world around us and say, how's it treating us? So by this logic, I have to believe that because our tulips are standing proudly today, that Carrie and I can claim that we are good people. But in reality, we know that that is not how we judge whether we're doing well or not. And yet Judaism has long taught that the environment around us is in fact a representation of the deeds that we have performed. In the same way that the Torah portion claims that we will be vomited out of our homes if we misbehave, the Midrash claims that we will be able to stay in our homes if we are righteous. It says, quoting Psalm 92, the righteous shall flourish like the palm tree and shall grow like the cedar of Lebanon. What does that mean? It means that like the cedar has roots that dig deep down into the earth, and the palm tree branches that are strong, that if the greatest winds of the earth come, those trees, they will not leave the place where they have been rooted. Act inappropriately, and the weakest wind will toss you out. Do good, Judaism says, and your roots will become so strong that you cannot be moved by the strongest storm. We withstand storms, it says, because of our righteousness, because we are able to do the right thing at the right time. That's what strengthens us when the world becomes chaotic. I want to take a moment, a brief aside now, and show everyone at home what Cantor Kathy and I get to see. And so I'll ask those who are with us, if you would like. This is like the kiss cam at the stadiums. Just don't kiss each other. If you'll turn around and look at the screen in the back of the room, you'll see that people at home can see you. And they can see that here we are in our sanctuary, spread out, safely wearing our masks, with so many rows and seemingly just a few people. And so, what is this environment that we are creating? It seems that we've been left with a blank slate and we are just starting to fill it. A blank canvas. Left that way over this last year, and now we're starting to add color, to put people into it. In the story of Noah, we're told that the world was destroyed despite the fact that Noah and his family were righteous. Why? Some say because in Noah's family, if you count his children and his wife, there were only 8 people. And in the next story in our Torah, we are told in the towns of Sodom and Gomorrah that Abraham argues and says, God, if there are 10 people, if there are 10, not 8, you must save them. Because 10 people can do something. So tonight, we don't have 100 people here, but we have our first minion. More than 10 people in our sanctuary for the first time in over a year. Tonight, we take our first step in welcoming people back into what has been an empty space outside of the bima where Cantor Kathy and I stand. The effort to refill our seats and our spaces in our world is our opportunity to rebuild the world the way we know it should be. Not the way it was, but the way that we imagine it could be as a better place. And it's going to happen one step at a time, one minion at a time. And so next week, we will welcome a few more people. We'll have 20 people in our sanctuary. And beginning in May, as you hopefully know from reading our window and our emails, we're going to invite up to 5 minyanim into this space. We are rebuilding our community one minion at a time, but we won't be judged by our numbers, we'll be judged by our actions, by the environment that we create as we come back together. When it comes to being together, this may mean that we have to make sure we get vaccinated, that we learn the new rules and the new culture, where to sit, reminders to wear our masks, how to take our time and be patient with each other, how to allow people to have different opinions, to have different feelings around the very same thing. But if we do it well, if we do what is right, then the minions we build will be the roots we need for the next storm that comes our way. And the return to our spaces will be a reminder of the strength of our community prior to the pandemic that we may not have noticed even when it was right around us. Because what we do in our world has an impact on our environment. There were 2 experiences in the last week that reassured me of the message of this week's Torah portion, that our environment is in fact a reflection of our values. The first was a seminar that I was privileged to take through the University of Wisconsin as I'm working on a certificate to be a grief support specialist. In one of our sessions, the question was asked by a peer whether it is appropriate for children to attend funerals. Now, I have to tell you, I've been asked this question dozens of times. And I came up with some answer that I thought fit whatever the scenario was. But the truth is, I didn't have any information, anything more than any parent has when they think about their own child attending a funeral. But I learned that while there's no one answer that fits all families, that the professors shared that the following principle always applies. Studies have shown that a child's grief is directly related to the well-being of their parent. In other words, if a child's parent, or the closest adult in their life, shows them that grieving someone can be sad and upsetting, but that they will survive that grief, then the child knows that they too, like their mom or their dad or their uncle or their grandparent, that they too will survive that grief. They take their cues from us. And so as we come back into post-pandemic life, acknowledging the ways that we've survived this storm, we're teaching our children that they too will be able to survive not only this storm, but the future storms that they face. We teach them that our roots run deep, that we face our fears, rely on medical professionals, trust our community to protect us, and that they can do the same. They will build confidence and strength if we have confidence and strength and make the right decisions at the right times. The second event of last week that taught this lesson to me was the conviction of Derek Chauvin. For too long and far too many times to count, as we all know, we've come to realize the threat that particularly black men face in this world. And by no means did that one trial undo all that has been done. But just as we took a step this week by bringing a minion into our sanctuary, holding bad policing accountable for murder in a trial is a step in the right direction. And it sends a message not only to the black community, to the world, but particularly to our children, that the world is listening and that we too believe we can do better as we re-enter the world, that the world is going to improve if we help it to improve, if we trust not just a minion, but 12 jurors to remind us that we can right some of these wrongs one step at a time. Our tradition tells us that what we do in this world, the way we act, the way we treat each other, the way we respect each other, our neighbors, and the stranger among us, that is what will decide whether we survive this world or not. And so what we have begun is the rebuilding of our world. One step at a time, one minion at a time, one court case at a time. I pray that we build it well, that we build it by seeing the divine in people who don't look like us, by practicing patience in the presence of those who see the world differently, by knowing that each of us will re-enter this new world at our own pace, by allowing each other to do that. May we do it knowing that the way we re-enter the world is in fact the very ground we are setting up for the seeds of the next generation. For what we do now will be what they need to do to plant their roots deep in the ground so that they can sprout up like cedars of Lebanon, withstand the greatest wind like the branches of the palm tree. What we do now is not just begin to end a pandemic. What we do now is start what the new world looks like and make it a better world, a stronger world, so that future generations know they can withstand whatever storm comes their way. Shabbat Shalom. We turn now page 282 in our prayer books. As we rise for the Aleinu, which I have to share as a brief aside, we haven't known if you were listening to us at all this last year and a half, but now here we have our own jury, and they actually listen. You didn't forget to stand when we say please stand. So thank you for those who are here and those who gave us a sense of what we have missed so much when looking out and not seeing a face. It is so nice to see faces before us and to know that we still have this community to respond to each other and to pray together. And so we turn to Aleinu, page 282.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tekedu l'aliatzer reshit, shelo asanu k'guyei haratot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, v'goraleinu k'chamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech ala kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
Please be seated. Our thoughts turn now to those who've departed this earth, our own loved ones and the loved ones of our friends and neighbors, the people that have been lost, martyrs of our people, whose graves we know go unmarked, and those of every race and every nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. This week in our community, we continue to remember Bruce Folkert Sr., and to add to his name those that we've lost at this season in years past: Barry Edelman, Bruce J. Applebaum, Rosa Aronson, Nikki Astor, Fred Axner, Ruth Bloom, Ruth Halburn Brower, Albert Buxbaum, Anna Foreman, Solomon M. Goldsmith, Abraham Henkin, Alvin D. Isroff, Ruth Jaffe, Nathan Katz, Marvin Copland, Marilyn Latimer, Matthew A. Margolis, Morris Markey, Richard Moss, Ruth C. Neisser, Doris Nemiroff, Sophie Newman, Sanford Chip Page, Lillian Pergosin, Anna Rebeck, Julia Harris Rosenblatt, Arthur Rosenthal, Milton S. Roth, Charles F. Rubenstein, Ada Ruth Sachs, David Seikel, Herman Schnittman, Jerry Shaw, Nancy Sheridan, Faye Glasman-Stoll, Saul Teitelbaum, Harry Trotner, Kenneth J. Weintraub, Meyer Wise, Harry Zake, and Suzanne Zimmerman. If there are names you'd like to add or names I mispronounced, we invite you to share those names aloud, whether you're here with us or at home. Page 294, we rise as we share the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudusha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world, as we say. Amen. We reach out to each other as we bless each other with the words of the priests. May God bless you and keep you. May God's presence be with you and gracious unto you. May you feel God's light within you always, and may that light bring you a sense of peace.
Amen.
Please remain standing as we'll join together in Kiddush and Motzi as we'll bless the Shabbat together. If you're at home, we invite you to raise a glass with us.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'rotzavanu, v'shabbat kodesho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lamasi v'leishit, ki hu yamet echila למקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי באנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה ורצון הנחתנו. Baruch atah Adonai mekadosh haShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim. You can say L'chaim back. Those who It's not in the rules. We didn't say you can't say L'chaim. We'll raise our challah as we'll bless Motzi together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat shalom. You can be seated if you'd like. A couple quick announcements, and then we'll conclude our service. First, thank you to Eli, who's here playing piano, and thank you to our board members who are here, not only as people praying with us, but also here to help us understand how to do this again, as in many ways our teachers, as we try to relearn how to ride this bike together. We're glad to have people who can share their feedback with us and help us to do this as best we can, knowing that it's not going to be a perfect path along the way. A few things coming up. The Hunger Walk is coming up, and you can, it's on May 2nd from 2 to 3 p.m. at the UU Church in Fair Lawn. So please follow along on I believe on our Facebook page and in the emails, the weekly Thursday email. There's information because they are working really hard in a year where people can't gather in person for what is usually a large event to raise money for the great need of getting food to those who are hungry. And we are in the midst of our Reaching for Ruth program. Hopefully you've been participating. We had a great discussion last night about interfaith families within the Jewish community. The next event is actually Sunday with our religious school. It's open to anyone. A wonderful activity to do with our children. So we encourage you to join at 11 o'clock. That's on Zoom, and if you need the link, probably the easiest thing to do is to email Lauren Trexler, or we'll try and post it perhaps before then, but it's the religious school link, so they have a different link than we usually use. And the other program is on Saturday, May 8th at 4:30 at the Nature Realm. God willing that the world continues to get safe in terms of COVID, and that the weather is good, that we will join together and go for a somewhat socially distanced hike, walk, we'll call it, and do Havdalah and enjoy closing out Shabbat together. That's May 8th at 4:30, and that's all in preparation for the concluding program, May 16th on Zoom at 7 p.m., which will be a watch party of the culmination of all these 4 classes that we've put together with the thanks of Rob Ross, who's been working with us. So please tune in for more Reaching for Ruth programs. If you register, there's an email coming out May 1st-ish. If you register, that email costs you nothing. You will get cheesecake delivered to your house. So that's that's the carrot. The cheesecake is the carrot. So please register, and we would love to deliver cheesecake to you, which is the traditional food for Shavuot, so we can all have our cheesecake together while we're watching on May 16th. We thank everybody who was here. For those who joined us, as you exit, there is a treat for you to enjoy. And please be careful, because we have not only our friendly security guard, but our also friendly Mother Goose, who's making her nest right outside the front of our building. So if you're lazy with your cookies, she may steal it from you. So please be mindful as you leave the building. We'll close with the words of Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. We invite all of those who are here to please stand as we'll sing this together. And we invite those at home to sing it with us as we close out our service.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'akulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'akulam. Salam Aleinu ve'akol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'akol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'akulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'akulam. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.